Hello, Collective. Okay, what I'm going to call this particular reading is this one's for the karmics. Now, I know that that's been the overall energy pretty much all week long, as shown to us by Gibo, which is generally a good luck rune, but it's in the reverse. So it talks about problems with the roots of an emotional manner or nature. Greed, loneliness, dependency, over-sacrificing obligations, toil, privation, and bribery. So that's the overall energy, and we've been seeing that on a daily basis since last Sunday. It's reflected all week long. And, in today's reading, it's no different. So, unfortunately, we're looking more at what's going on with the karmics, and perhaps that's not necessarily a bad thing because they are, in some way, shape or fashion, a part of our energetic sphere of influence. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody what the relationship is. It could be a past spouse. It could be a divorced spouse, in other words. It could be a sibling. It could be a mother, a father, or it could be a friend or ex-friend. It really is going to be different for each and every person that's out there that's watching this. So with that in mind, it's quite difficult to hone in sometimes in any type of a general reading, but the overall energy is the overall energy, and it, even though it's not linear in the sense that it's happening simultaneously exactly this way for everybody right this minute. Some people, this stuff has already unfolded. Other people, it's unfolding as we speak, and still others who may be watching this or will watch this in the future will be unfolding in that time period. So it's unique in that way. And again, that would take an entire video, maybe a series of videos, to really explain, at least from a scientific quantum physics perspective, and relate it to, what the various religions of the world have told us thousands of years before all of these so-called new revelations that we find in science, which has become the new religion of the day, by the way. And again, that's a bold statement to make, but I make it based on the dogma that everybody believes that they have to follow it. It has to be true if it's given the classification as being scientific, even though science changes, or it has to change based on new information as it comes. Now, the thing about academia, of course, is that they are very slow to admit error, if at all, and because to take that a step further, it's actually controlled and basically owned by people who have the money. So their agenda is being perpetuated forward versus what is true. So, what we discover really in life, when you're really trying to ascertain what truth is that nearly everything that we've been told is a lie. And remember now, if you entertain or you inject even the smallest mistruth into a statement, that statement becomes a lie. Okay? And it's just that simple. And based on that alone, we have been given a tremendous amount of lies mixed in with a certain amount of truth. And you're never going to find any truth in this world, especially as a whole, something you can put together that helps you to understand this world, unless you are willing, one, to unlearn everything that you've learned, two, allow truth to take you to what the truth is instead of coming at it with a preconceived notion, and three, have the courage to follow those truths, all the way through to the end. That's critical thinking. And without that, it's impossible to find any truth. Or another way of putting it, from a dogmatic or religious perspective, unless one searches for truth as they would for buried treasure, that's the type of enthusiasm that's necessary in this endeavor, then you'll never find it. So people, who have already partaken in this and continue to do so, can be of assistance, but they're only of assistance. They are not the end all be all, and you should listen to no man, no institution, no academic, whatever you want to call them. I have a growing disdain for it, academia, because of their large ego. they just refuse to be challenged. They just refuse to accept that they could be wrong. They just refuse to allow any type of debate or discourse, to challenge status quo. And they can't because, it's based on funding. Once you control things through financial means, as I've already stated, then, well, that pretty much is the end of any pursuit of truth in that particular area or genre. So you have to be basically the captain of your own ship on this journey, and we all have to be. We take responsibility for our own lives, and it could be intimidating and scary for some people. I understand. I've had moments where, out of confusion and doubt, and certainly, peer pressure from others who assure you that they know what the truth is, and all they're doing is basically parroting what they heard in some academic setting or some book that they read, a singular book. They've never really looked at that subject all the way through. And I'm not professing to have all the answers, but I certainly understand the process, and I've tried to exercise that process so that I can find genuine truth in a world that is set up to be, well, anything but. Okay? So, anyways, with that being said, and already reading what the overall energy of the week, and again, it's Kibo in the reverse, so it's quite negative overall, and today's reading is a reflection of that as well. This one is for, again, the cross-watcher, the non-collective, and the karmics who are out there, and it brings it all the way through to the end based on that general overall energy. So the past energy that we get is Othala. Now, Othala is not a negative energy. This is the state that they used to be in, but that state has been challenged or is being challenging currently. This is where they were comfortable. They had their homes, their dwellings, their ancestral property, if you will, and blessings and things of that nature, but they basically abused the power that they once had. So those gifts are been stripped away from them, being taken away from them, and they are literally going through their karma. As a result, as we see in the present energy, which is actually the inverse or reverse of the very same rune, Othala. So we have Othala in the past as being upright, but the present energy is actually in the reverse. And by the way, that is number 24, which translates out to the number 6 in numerology. And as far as number 6 goes, it just stands for vibrant life and strength. It's used for creation and destruction, but there's very little else in the mythic texts to go on in regards to the numerology aspect of that. But what does Othala in the reverse mean? It means recklessness, frustration, legal problems, as I was stating already, hassles, lacking of order, totalitarianism and slavery, poverty, homelessness, bad karma, prejudice, clannishness, and what a person is bound to, whether it's a group, whether it's a family, ancestral, if you will, way of doing things or thinking. And this is precisely what I'm going through with certain people and everything else. Exactly. So, and I know I'm not alone. I'm not doing just a personal reading for myself. I'm doing it for the collective. And as I pray, that's exactly what I ask for. As I go through my, ceremonies and my meditations, it's always in regards to the collective as a whole. So people are experiencing this, and prejudice doesn't always have to be of, certain ethnic or racial differences. Okay, it could be ethnic, it could be, gender, it could be, sexuality, it can be any multitude of things where people are not necessarily in the same line of thinking as you yourself are. Okay, but somebody along those lines who thinks of you as a, if you will, opposite and incompatible, perhaps, even though it's obvious that they have a deep, dark obsession with you, collective, whoever this is. So, Alright, so in magic, Othala is used basically for strengthening family ties and connections and things of that nature. It can also be used in a sense with a bind rune, which is simply a superimposing of other runes with it to ward your threshold and other things like that, or to create a protective barrier of sorts. Okay, so that's the present. Now, in our challenges and obstacles, we have Ewas. Ewas is the letter E in their alphabet, and this 2 is in the reverse. It's number 19, which translates out to 10, of course, numerically, which is number 1. And number 1 in Nordic numerology is the number of beginnings, as it is for Mediterranean numerology. It talks about beginnings of the root causes and solidarity. It talks about being rare in operative runecraft and mythological references, so there's not a whole lot to go on. And like I said, I'm developing this very slowly, but I'm being careful because I really don't have a whole lot of precedence in this. Most people just automatically incorporate Mediterranean numerology with it, but I'm trying to go back, in all of these things that I'm learning, as far back as I'm capable of going back, and then looking at other areas perhaps that have comparable or very similar thinking in regards to things such as this. And like I said, I've already found a couple within the Hindu belief system, for example, in terms of numerology. Now, that's not to say that one spawned the other or anything of that nature, but it's not beyond certainly my ability to believe that there was influences there, because I believe the Vedic history goes much, much further back than we've been told. Just like world history in general, and this is why we find so many architectural anomalies worldwide. There's literally pyramids in every country. You have the earthen mounds, which are exactly the same thing in a sense here in Americas as well. And other, we have the Scottish pyramid, Black Pyramid, and so on. You have all these pyramids. The largest one they found, I think, is either in Bosnia or Central America, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, because depending on what you read and who which documentary you watch, it will vary. But the point is, there's over 200 of them in China. So, and of course, they are also found in northern Africa. They're found everywhere. So, Nikola Tesla actually uncovered much of what he believed they were actually being used for. And it denotes, once again, that the history that we have been taught is a bold-faced lie. They don't know. They don't know shit. And they just don't. I'm just going to leave it at that. I know it's going to piss off academics, especially if they're historians, but they don't. They just don't know what the real history of our world was. We've had advanced civilizations, and that becomes increasingly apparent the more that we discover. And academia is simply not willing to even look at that. So, this is why I've already suggested that you get out there and find your own truth, because you're not going to find it within the traditional sources. But Ewas in the reverse, I've already given you the numerological aspect of it, means long journeys, okay? Sudden changes, timing, craved changes as well, feeling restless or confined in a situation, reckless, haste, mistrust and disharmony, and also betrayal. Now, the betrayal is not just between you and karmic or karmics. It could be singular or plural depending on your situation, but also amongst themselves. You know what they say about thieves, right? There's no honor found there. So they are also squabbling and fighting. Their world is being turned upside down because they've simply chosen the wrong side. They've refused to show any discipline, to do anything to better themselves, and they've been given a tremendous amount of time and many suggestions to change their ways, and refuse to do so. So now they're being forced to reflect upon themselves. Okay? Alright, so magically Ewas is used when journeying to other worlds in the world tree. Now, just a quick recap of what that means. In Norse belief systems, there are 9 dimensions or worlds in their world tree. It's very similar to the Kabbalistic world tree, if you will, so to speak. It's different, but there are similarities once again. And when you're traveling, if you will, shamanically or meditatively, this is a way of protecting you during those, if you will, those journeys for those who partake. And you can look at it from astral traveling type of perspective. Some people out there may practice that. You're here because you're probably spiritual, not religious, and as a result you may partake in many of these types of experiences. This is a rune that you can use in protection during those times, one of several actually. And it's used to also reinforce your partnerships, as I've stated, either romantically, platonically, or professionally. Never use magic in any way, shape, or form to override anybody else's will. Okay, that's simply a piece of advice, to not inadvertently bring karma upon yourself. Okay. I don't want to get too much into that right now. This is about what the energy is right now. It's not about using it to project energy for your own, devices, if you will. Now, in terms of our help and advice, we have Thurisaz. Now, this is Thor's mighty rune. Okay. Now, the word Thurisaz basically means giant, so that's what the word basically implies for Thurisaz, giants. Thor himself was the offspring of, if you will, a giantess. So, but he also fights against the giants, and he guards the other worlds, including this one. Okay, and so it means giant, thorn, protection. It means it may feel like a giant situation of sorts that you're going through, but you have means of protecting yourself. And that simply means by righting the wrongs that you've created, trying to balance out, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing it, although I believe karma itself is part of this world trap. We are still basically subjected to it until we find our way out of it. But until that happens, we have the energy, and it is available for protection, for defense, for counsel, such as what you're getting here. Also, the reactive force and directed force of will to overcome or defend in a situation or a conflict. Your instinctual will to, first avoid problems and situations and correct them, those that you've already found yourself in the midst of because of your bad decisions. It also talks from the masculine perspective of vital eroticism and sexuality, fertilization, things of that nature. Okay. Now, it's one of the most powerful runes, so it's to be used carefully in magical workings and so on, but it can be used to amplify other runes around it quite a bit, and it can also be used as, like in a magical sense, the same way that a pentacle and a circle is used to protect yourself from the darker forces as they engage with them. In this sense, it's used to ward off, negative forces that may have been sent your way. Okay, because we don't deal with the negative aspects of things. We all have our dark side, our shadow side. That's true, and we are to embrace it, not ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. But we control it, not the other way around, and we certainly do not collaborate with those darker forces. I mean, using a Christian perspective again, or any, if you will, Judaic Christian perspective, which is also Islamic, whether it's jinn, whether it's demons, archons from the Gnostic perspective, or whatever the case may be, we know that they're deceivers, they are liars, and you're going to make some kind of a commitment with a liar and expect them to give you what you want. Well, you may get it to a certain point, you may have it for a certain amount of time, but you're taking a greater risk than you obviously have any idea about by doing these types of things. And you're making deals with entities that really do not have your best interests at heart. at all. So that's exactly what some of these people who've been doing exactly these types of things are experiencing right now. They're literally being haunted by these very spirits that they've been sending your way, my way, and so on and so forth. And like I said, I know these things to be true in my life. Some of you are also experiencing the same, or maybe you're just feeling that possibility, but you don't have the evidence or the facts. I'm trying to confirm that for you now. So as long as you're keeping your vibration up high, you're doing your ritual cleansing and everything else, you are actually, doing your best to raise your vibration from a spiritual perspective with your discipline and your practices, your meditations, your fastings, your cleansings, and all of those types of things, sending that negative energy back to wherever it came, then you have absolutely nothing to worry about at all. But they do. They have everything to worry about. And since this reading is for the karmics out there, and I only use that word to help those people who are watching this, they believe secretly, but I know they're not. Well, I know that they're watching, so it's not so secretive. But as many times as I tell them that, they still think they're being sneaky, and it's almost hilarious to me, but whatever. I'm still doing this to help you, to edify you as well, even though you choose not to listen, you roll your eyes, even to this day, no matter what you're going through. And I've said this so many times, it's almost hurtful. But you've done the crime. You are paying the penalty for those crimes. So in other words, you're doing the time, or you will be doing the time. Some of you literally, in a physical sense, are about to be imprisoned. Others are being imprisoned spiritually. It could be both, depending on just how much you've done. But keep in mind, the things that you sent out there, if you sent them to people like me, those things are coming back to you. I've shared this with you a multitude of times. You are hopefully understanding to some degree of how energy works, since you're using it so haphazardly. So you know that if you're sending it to something, and that something is sending it back to you where it came from, that what you put upon that person, whatever it may be, even up to death, is coming back your way. Now, it doesn't make me happy to have to say this, but again, if you're not willing to accept the penalty of, something when you made your decisions to do it, then you're not living in a very mentally balanced state. And we're going to get to that here a little bit later as well. There's more evidence of that. But anyways, you do have energy that is available, but it's not going to be easy. You are going to literally have to scratch, crawl, and literally, you're going to have to use every ounce of strength you have within you. And you do have, the ability to change things around. But you're going to have to raise your frequency up if you expect to be heard after all the slights that you've done to the higher realms, so to speak, by turning your back to them, by clinging to the lower realms as you have to do the things you have. And now that you're going through it, you can't expect the higher realms simply to, take that burden off of you. You have to learn your lesson, which means just like any loving parent at times, there has to be discipline involved with what is right and what is wrong, especially when that wrong has been chosen again and again and again. You have to, to go to that next step. And you've brought it on yourself. I hate to keep saying it, but it's true. Okay? Alright, so what is the overall future and outcome look like? Well, it's Yera. And this is one of the 9 that looks the same, upright or reversed. See? It looks exactly the same. So, again, I draw a lot, I throw it, and it indicates the arrow will point up or point down. And it basically, more often than not, It's exactly the way that my gut tells me it is. And of course, this one is in the reverse as well. So, what does Yara mean in the reverse? It talks about you cannot rush fruition. It talks about seasonal things. In other words, things happening in their own time, their own season, cyclical, so to speak. But it talks about reversals, setbacks, major changes in your life, perhaps a feeling of repetitiveness, poverty, bad timing, and conflicts. So, again, these are the types of things that could have been avoided and can still be avoided for your future. I mean, depending what that actually looks like based on your actions previous to this and how long you've been doing it. But no matter how long you've been into this, whether you've actually grown into some type of, a family coven of witches or warlocks and, or devil worshippers or whatever the case may be, whatever you believed, but basically utilizing dark or low vibrational energies to get your way, harm other people, to get the things that you want, and not have any concern for the welfare of anybody else. Well, now that your welfare is being challenged, you can't expect the whole world and the higher realms to come to your aid. It's not going to come until you've actually shown that, one, you are serious about making changes, and that's not going to happen easily. It's hard even for those who don't partake in those kinds of things to move forward in this world that is set up, to fight you every step of the way. So for you, who have lived this particular lifestyle your whole life and thought that it was okay to do the things that you do, without any repercussions, you are tested. We're all tested. Every one of us. So you still have a chance. You can make your own decision to get your way out of it, but it's not going to be easy. And I have to be honest with the things that, I see, things I feel, the things that I know to be true. Instinctually through years and years of research. So I wish you the very best. I truly do. And I know there are people out there who have meant me nothing but harm for the longest time, have said and slandered me and done the worst, absolute worst, including to the point of wanting me to disappear from this world. Well, I'm not sorry for still being here. It has not been an easy life for me either. And it's one that I plan, and I will be forced, in fact, actually, to share at some future point, but not now. I only hope the best for everybody out there. I believe that it's important that we understand that those who are also, for whatever reason, arrayed against us, and again, I'll use a Christian, if you will, perspective, that Ephesians 6:10 through 20 basically gives us the whole aspect of spiritual warfare, but to always remember specifically that we're not warring against the flesh. So to the people that I know specifically are arrayed against me, I'm not exactly angry at you. I have been at times, I admit it. I've wanted to fight you back. I have. But instead, I realize that I'm fighting against the forces that you've allowed to control you. And as we progress, I'm sure that we're going to see that some of you are flat out actually taken over by these darker entities that you've invited into your life again and again and again. It's going to take every ounce of will and that small amp of truth that you still have in your heart, hopefully, to fight this and to win this. But you have my prayers, my wishes as well, that you find your way out of this. Okay? Now, with that being said, I wish the collective especially a wonderful rest of the day and evening. And we'll do this again tomorrow. And Sunday, I'm going to go ahead and I'll post for the rest of the week. And I'm hoping that the next week proves to be a little bit more positive for us. Okay? I will always be honest, and I won't just say what sounds good to bring about more viewers and things of that nature. I have to be honest. That's all I got to say. So I wish you guys the best, obviously, victory, and I will see you in the future in Valhalla, since we are fighting the good fight, right? Our Valkyries will take us up to, the Great Hall. Symbolically, I use that because I believe beyond this, personally. But I do honor my ancestors, and I have a large ancestral line and lineage. It goes literally for all of the Western world, the entire Western world. I mean, everything. So, with that being said, I honor them and I honor you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.